Good morning or afternoon, everyone. We're going to give a few minutes for people to join into the webinar, and then we'll get started. Good morning or afternoon, folks. I show top of the hour. We're still going to give people a couple of minutes. The participants are still joining in. We'll get started at just a couple minutes past. Thank you. Just a process note as we start. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A tab within the Zoom meeting, and that will allow us to organize and respond to those as best as possible. We'll get started in just a moment. Welcome to today's webinar. This is Andrew DeTavio, Director of Customer Success with Accela. Today, Joshua Hammaker and I will be presenting setting up inspection calendars for the back office and Citizen Access. For those of you who have been around with Accela for a while, we are restarting the Customer Success webinar series. This is our first in that restart effort, and I'm excited to be bringing back that webinar series for our customers. For those of you familiar with those in the past, they've been very beneficial for education purposes. I was also made aware recently as we're bringing these back that many of those webinars have some broken links in the current community site for the previous ones. And just one side note today is we are going through all of that old content and bringing that content back for any of the previous webinars. So those links will be corrected here in the next couple of weeks as we bring that content back. As I mentioned, our speakers today, myself and Joshua, and the agenda for today, we're going to keep it pretty simple. My introduction is done. Joshua will introduce himself in a moment. We'll walk through the presentation of the information that we're going to convey today around setting up the inspection calendars to meet your requirements. And there will also be a live demonstration showing the system and how we've configured it within that test site. And then we'll leave plenty of time for Q&A following those presentations. And please feel free to ask any Q&A in the Q&A tab during the presentation. So with that, I will turn it over to Joshua and we can get started.
All right, good day everyone. This is Joshua Hammaker. I'm a Customer Success Manager with Accela. And today, what we're gonna be focusing on is how to set up scheduling and inspection in ACA. And I'm gonna do it with districts and disciplines, but I'm also gonna kind of show how you could turn that off or configure it other ways. So this is kind of, this screenshot shows what we're getting to, so that if you click on a date, you'll get times in which that inspection could be scheduled. So I wanted to show this because I'm gonna go through kind of some configuration steps of how to do the configuration. And then during the demo, I'll recap some of that information. And then also, I'll show you some, kind of troubleshooting techniques depending on what's happening. So with that, here are some things that may be required depending on how you want to set up. Inspection types and groups will be, you have to have those pre-configured. User profiles, you'll need at least some users set up as inspectors. Inspection calendar will be required, and I'll show you where to do that. Districts and disciplines will be required if you choose to use districts and disciplines for your inspectors to assign inspections. And in the demo today, I'm going to show how to use districts and disciplines, but you can turn that off if you want. And then also units. So I'm going to talk a little bit about units here in a minute. Some of the assumptions and prerequisites that I'm not going to cover are inspection types. They should already exist. I'm assuming that users already exist and that people have created users. And then unit values need to be consistent across all places where units are configured. So what that means is if you're assuming an 8-hour day has 480 minutes in it, and that's what you set for your inspector for the daily inspection units, when you set up the calendar, you'll also need to do that in minutes. So if you set up 8 hours, you'll need to, on the calendar, set it up as hours. So I just wanted to make sure everyone understood that, and I'm going to cover it again, but it's a place where a lot of people get tripped up. So I thought I would start with that. So this will be user configuration. So there's a couple things you can set here. Daily inspection units. So like I said, here's 480. And then also, if you want disciplines and districts, this is where you would set up for the inspector. You'll also need to set disciplines and districts for the inspections as well. So this inspector has 1 district and 2 disciplines, general and just a building generic. And I'm gonna talk more about that and how that works in the demo. You will also need to set the unit values for the inspection types being used. So when you configure your inspections, there's a couple of things you'll need to set. You'll need to display the inspection in ACA. If you want it to auto assign, and in this case, I'm having to auto assign to inspectors, you would need to set that to yes. And then unit here, this unit is how many units in the ACA block default are going to be used. So in this case, I've set 1 unit here, and in my demo, the block default is 60, and this will make more sense in a minute. So I'm using 60 minutes per inspection. If you had a case where you wanted, your inspections normally took 30 minutes, but some took an hour, you would set your block units on ACA, the ACA calendar, to 30, and then you could set the ones for 30 minutes here to 1, and then the ones that take 60 minutes to 2. So that trips a lot of people up, so I just thought I would mention that, kind of highlight that. And then if you scroll to the right, when you're configuring your inspections, there's this drop down for configuration where you can set other things. The one we're going to focus on today is inspection disciplines. So if you have a mechanical inspector and he only does mechanical, you can set, that inspector to have a discipline of mechanical, and then you can set the inspection to have the discipline of mechanical. And then only a mechanical inspector will be able to do those inspections. So when it goes through and tries to find time on a calendar, it will honor those disciplines if you have those set. We're not going to really talk about these other 2 options today, so that will probably be another webinar another day. So that's kind of some of the back office. So this is in in Accela admin, so the V360 is what a lot of people call it. So you would need to browse to a calendar. So a lot, the one we'll see in the demo is ACA default inspection calendar. This one's permit inspection calendar. Kind of the key things here is it needs to be and the type is inspection. The name can be whatever. If you need it to be priority 1, if you want this one to be used. You can set some other things. Here's the default block I was talking about and the ACA schedule time block. So the default block, when I was saying earlier, for that unit, that is 1 unit of this default block, which is how you'll see that these are being scheduled for an hour apiece. You can set some other things here, like how many days in advance can they schedule, and also how many number of days out can they schedule. So here, you'll see in the calendar when I do the demo that we are scheduling, we can only pick 10 days out for, or I think I set it to 30 in the demo, but you can kind of limit that so they can't go and schedule things for next year. And then enable for ACA is important, because if you don't do that, this will not work. And then you can set cutoff times. So if you want all the inspections to come in by noon for the next day, or by 4, you can set that here, and it will honor that. That day will no longer be available. In the example I'm going to do, it's set for 4, so I'll still be able to schedule some inspections for tomorrow. Otherwise, I won't be able to. Some other things to note here, we're going to look at this daily tab up here. And we're also going to look at districts, permissions, and inspection types in these next few slides. I just kind of wanted to give you guys a heads up of where those exist when I go to the next slide. So permissions, you can set the permissions based on user needs. So if you needed, certain groups only to be able to interact with this calendar, read only to be able to change schedules, you can set those here. Then districts. So you don't have to set a district, but if you do set a district, what this would do is limit this calendar to only those districts, and the same with permissions. And the districts combined with the next tab, which is inspection types, would control if you had a lot of inspections. So if you had code enforcement, you had, health, for food inspections, and building department, if you had a lot of different types of inspectors and you wanted to do different calendars, you would use the combination of districts and inspection types, or you could just use inspection types to control which calendar was used, which inspections, or which inspections, that calendar used. So if your health district required everyone for next day to submit by noon, you could set up a calendar for them. And if your building department was okay with people calling in, setting it all the way until, 8 p.m., you could set up that calendar slightly different. Couple things on this inspections tab is you want to make sure that you only have the inspection on one calendar. So for this deck final inspection in this slide, I would want to make sure that this deck final inspection was only on this calendar. If you put this on multiple calendars, you're going to get conflicts of potentially permissions, districts, some sort of timing. So it causes headaches to troubleshoot. So if you are setting up multiple calendars, just be careful to make sure that you are setting up those calendars with different inspections. Some things here you can set. So schedule inspection in ACA. This one is set to schedule using calendar for today. You can set if that inspection can be canceled or rescheduled by the public user. So that could be, you can set those up, kind of per inspection, how you want them to be. This is the default. So cancel, reschedule, or set to yes, enable ready. I can't remember the rest of that, set to no. And we'll look at this a little bit more coming up as well. So if I go to the next slide. So if you remember, I pointed to that daily tab up at the top of when you click on the calendar, you'll see calendar, daily, weekly, monthly. Most of the time we set these things for daily. And the big thing I wanted to note here before I go to the next slide is this pop-up message, be sure and read it. I normally click OK and don't think about what the message actually says. But this one's important. because if you click OK, you're only going to edit for March 7th, 2019 in this case. If I click cancel, it's going to edit for the whole series. So that will make changes. So if I make a change on this calendar, it will be for everything here into the future. So I just wanted to point that out because a lot of times, people are clicking OK and they're only changing it for one day. And they don't understand why when they go click something in the future, it's not showing up properly. So when you do click on that link, what happens is then you see this screen. So this one is set up for a whole day of inspections. And so some things you can set here is this one is set up to repeat every day. So if you have a blockout calendar that blocks out weekends and holidays, you can set this to repeat every day, and then the blockout calendar will overwrite what's set here. So you won't be able to schedule weekends and so on. If you don't have that and you just want to, or if you just want to be thorough and meticulous and set it for Monday through Friday specifically, you can set that here. And I wanted to point out, and I'll point out again, this calendar does not affect back office. So if you allow premium inspections that would allow you to do night and weekend inspections, for a fee, or I guess if you're nice, you can let your inspectors go out and do it. In the back office, you can still schedule those. What this is really controlling is what the people in the ACA and Citizen Access can schedule. So in the back office, you can still schedule for weekends and, overlap, do more stuff. You have a lot more control. But again, this is only for the Citizen Access, for the public users specifically. So that's setting up the calendar. Now scheduling the inspection. So this is an ACA. And like I said, this is going to be close to what we saw in the back office. And then I'm going to launch into a demo where I'm going to go through some of this stuff in more detail. So this is, when you go to record info inspections, this is what you see. If you click on actions, if you allow them to schedule, you'll see that I can click schedule here. And then that pops up this window. And then in this case, this is a newer slide. So this is that 30 days out. That I can only schedule up to October 7th. I cannot, do past that. And obviously I can't do in the past, but I can't go any further. Like I can't do the 8th today. I could tomorrow. So what you do is you would click on a date, and then depending on how you're configured, the one in the previous slide was configured to show the whole day. This one is configured to show 1 hour blocks, so 4 for each setting. So this should say morning and afternoon, and then the user will click the time that they desire. That's gonna, then once they click that and hit continue, it's gonna bring this up and let them know the location and the contact. So in this case, it's me. But if you wanted to change the contact, say you had someone else on site, you could do that here to let the inspector know that they have someone else to talk to. And then also, when you click continue, you can add additional notes, which is nice, like come around back. Here's my cell phone number, call me when you get here. I'll be on the 13th floor, whatever. You need to help that inspector get to you so that they can get the inspection done quicker. So once you go through all that, what you'll see is now all of these inspections are scheduled for different times. And then once you get those scheduled, what you can do back office is you can go to the calendar portlet, or if your inspector supervisor and you're trying to schedule someone manually during the day that called in, you'll start seeing the inspections show up. So this is an example, and I'll show this again with some more inspections. So this is just a weekly, and if you haven't used the calendar portlet, I recommend to go looking at it if you do work with inspections, because it's a nice way to kind of view all of this information. You can do it by inspection if you have meetings. for like plan review meetings or after-hour meetings like zoning, you can use the calendars to kind of view it all in one place. You can view all calendars or a specific type. So it's kind of a nice thing. Check it out if you haven't. And then, so with that, I know it said questions, but we're not quite at questions yet. So I'm going to go back to questions. So now I'm going to jump over to a demo and kind of show you what this looks like, how to configure it, but also how it looks in ACA, and kind of go a little bit more in depth of what happens if I continue to schedule inspections. So I'm going to go to my record here. In this case, I have a couple inspectors that can only do certain types of inspections. So I have one, Marie Akers, that is a general and a plumber. And then I have one, Zeta Lee Hamaker, that can do general and mechanical. And then I have a bunch of other just general inspectors, but they also have different districts. And so the way, when it tries to schedule one of these inspections, is it's going to look at district, discipline district, and then time. And if it can't find anything, depending on how you have it configured, it will then just jump to the next available inspector. So there's a lot of options. And the one I'm going to mainly focus on is if we have districts disciplines here. So the first one I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of do a live demo here on the 12th for a pre-site inspection. So this is what I was saying before. I could change a contact. I could just put in another person. It doesn't have to be an existing contact. If it is an existing contact, you can click on them. But here I'm just going to continue. This is the part where I was mentioning additional notes. And then I'm going to schedule a couple more until I get, until it tells me that there are no longer any inspections available at that time. So this one, I'm trying to do a mechanical rough-in. And like I said, I only have one mechanical inspector for all of my districts, which is Zeta Lee. So they're not available at 8. So then I can go to, I can try see if they're available at 9. Okay, they're available at 9, which is good. And I'm not going to do the additional notes there. And then I'm going to go ahead and let's do, just to kind of show you. So this is another mechanical. So I'm going to try 8. It doesn't like that because she's scheduled for 8, which we saw before. She's also now scheduled for 9 because we just scheduled one for 9. And so then the next available time for Zeta Lee would be 10 o'clock. So you can kind of see once you have all this set up, it's nice because you can start, blocking out the time. And so you see here, this is Zeta Lee. So she's the mechanical. So she got the pre-site inspection. And then, John, the wrong person got it. But you can see it's jumping through. So maybe I was mentioning wrong and I have the wrong person with the wrong type. Sorry about that. But you can see that it's going through the inspectors and their disciplines and their districts to try to find an open time and the right person to do the inspection. So that's how it works here. I'm going to go back into the back office and kind of just show you guys the calendar that I was talking about and how that looks. So you can do calendar by name. Here's calendar by type. You see they're kind of the same. You can do it by department as well. So all of my inspections are on the 12th. And as you can see, I was just going through and adding inspections. So you can see John Smith is being, having a bunch of mechanical inspections. Marie has a bunch of plumbing. Zeta has some pre-site inspections and a mechanical. So you can kind of continue to jump through these inspectors to get more I just want to make sure it's mostly up to date. But then you can come here and see kind of what people's workload is. And then if someone called in and I saw, okay, well, Darren doesn't have anything at 10, I'll go ahead and schedule this inspection to Darren. You can also see this if I go, so I'm gonna jump here. So that same calendar, there it is available. So we'll do a plumbing final. So that same calendar is available here. So if I minimize this and open up inspection calendar down here, you'll see that I can see that same calendar, but also since I have disciplines and districts, you can see now that it will tell me, okay, well, this matches Marie's discipline and it matches her district, but it also matches Zeta's district and John's district. So, so it will allow them, you know, and then you can pick who you want to schedule and schedule this inspection. So, and you can see it already picked Marie without me having to go and select her. So it just kind of gives you an idea of, you know, kind of once you set up those things, it gives you more information, you know, not only in ACA, but in the back office as well. So what I wanted to show is just kind of where some of the stuff is real quick. So if I go to users, and then I we'll pick Marie Akers here. So instead of clicking on edit, which is normally where you would go and you know, set up your user, you know, change email and stuff, what you want to click is this user information section. And then this is where you set up districts and disciplines. And also you can set your daily inspection units here. You do need to make sure that on that other, on here, that their inspector status is set to enabled. Because if you don't have them set to enable here, they'll never show up as an inspector. You know, they won't show up on that list. And then what I wanted to show real quick here as well is, this is where you would go to set the units, the ACA inspection display, and this is that configuration I was talking about. Depending on your screen size and all of that, you might have to scroll to the right, but this is where you would select your disciplines for that inspection type. So if I go to, let me go to a mechanical here real quick. So this one is mechanical and general. So that would be why John Smith was allowed to do that mechanical inspection, because it's also set to general. If this was just set to mechanical, it wouldn't work. He would not have been picked for that. And I'm going to come back into here real quick and then hop over. So this is the V360, the administration page. So this is where you would go and configure that calendar itself. So here's the ACA default inspection calendar, and you can see here, this is that default block I was talking about, that 60. And if you remember, I breezed over it pretty quick, but the unit on the inspection was 1. So if I wanted to have 30-minute and 60 minutes, I could set this to 30 minutes and then go back and set the units to 1 or 2, and it will allow it to take up, you know, either half hour or more time. Districts, you can set it or not. So right now this isn't limited by district and it doesn't have any permissions on it. But again, this is kind of the key one here. Only 1 inspection per calendar. So if you start adding more, it's gonna, cause conflicts. So just something to point out there. So here is where I was talking about the daily. So if I click on this, So you can see this is where you would go to set that. If you wanted weekly, actually I'll show monthly just because it kind of shows a little bit more here. So this is what it would look like monthly. This calendar specifically was modified today, so I don't see anything pre-today, but everything after today shows what I'd set up. So just kind of wanted to show you that as well. Some troubleshooting. That's the other thing I was going to show you. So some troubleshooting things. Once you set this up to need disciplines and districts, some things that can cause some issues. So I'm going to go to a record here that doesn't have, that doesn't have a district associated with it. And this would do the same thing if there's no discipline associated and you have disciplines set to be a criteria. So if I remember right, this one doesn't have a district. So if I come in here and I do schedule and I click on the 12th, notice that it's hard to see probably, but notice I can't click on any of these radio buttons. It's just grayed out. So this is, so because there's no district. So this calendar, for that inspection type, since it requires a district, there's no district here, so it doesn't think that it can actually schedule that inspection. So if we go to that record here, so that was 09, so we'll exit admin, and I'll go to my building permits, and I will go to, which is on the next page. And it will take, depending on how you have your district set up, there's a certain order it will look for districts. So if I go to district here, you'll see it only has an enforcement district, but my inspections were only set up for building districts. So if I add one, so I'm just going to add building district 1 here. And now if I go back to ACA, and unfortunately you have to go off the record and back onto it. It doesn't automatically resync here when you click on that. So if I come back to here and do inspections, and then come into here and do schedule, and I click on the same day, now I can see, now you can see that you can select the time slot. So that's kind of some of the troubleshooting things. The other thing that will, that I've seen that's caught people up is if you go to, there's a standard choice that determines, give me 1 second here, determines if it uses disciplines or districts. So if you look at this standard choice inspector auto assign criteria, notice I have it set to discipline and district. If I didn't have this, it wouldn't matter what disciplines and districts I set up everywhere, it wouldn't use them. And then you would get everyone. And you can kind of see that, I'll show you kind of where you can see where I was testing having this disabled versus having it enabled. So if you only ever wanted to do it by discipline and not district, you could deactivate this or set it to no. Or if you wanted to do only district and not discipline, vice versa. So those are options as well. So, and then if we go back to the calendar, when I was testing here, so if I, sorry, go back to this. You can see that I have these other people that are just set as inspectors that I didn't set up today. So what it will do is if you don't have that set, it will just loop through all of your inspectors until that time slot's full, and then it'll do the next, and then it'll do the next, and it won't matter what your district or your discipline is. So, and there's some other standard choices out there that you can control, more specific stuff like that, but I just wanted to kind of give you a heads up on those two troubleshooting issues. And then I'm trying to think, I thought there was one other thing I wanted to show you guys. Oh, I'll show you this because this is, oh, let me go back to a different record here. So let me go back to record 6. So here, notice I can reschedule and I can cancel. So the cancel is, you know, what I was showing on the calendars per inspection. You can decide if they can reschedule or cancel out here. So if I wanted to reschedule, notice it's already showing me what time slot I had before. So if I found out, okay, well, really I want to go up to the 18th, I can go ahead and just reschedule right here. So, you know, that's kind of nice. You know, for the ACA users, if they didn't get their work done, you know, they can go ahead and reschedule it. And then you can see down here that, you know, kind of tracking that, okay, well, it was rescheduled by me, not by the inspector. So I believe that is all I was going to show currently. So we'll take the questions.
Yeah, there are quite a few questions, Joshua, so we're getting quite a bit of feedback from the Q&A tab, which is great. The first thing I'd like you to go back and show is, would you mind showing us how we set up a holiday blockout within the calendar? There's been several questions around blocking out the 4th of July or standard holidays within that calendar. Could you illustrate that for us?
Oh, hold on. I'm in the wrong section.
You're in the user portal, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, it looks so similar, so I'm sorry about that. So here, if you don't have one already, you could come to here and set your agency holiday. So and then once you have this calendar, then you can do, you know, your monthly, wait, oh, sorry. No, I was on the right one. So you can come in here and then start setting up, okay, well, I know that I want to repeat this every year for a certain date. We'll do, what's a good one? Probably New Year's Day. So you could set this and be, you know, set this here and then have it record, you know, well, let's be optimistic. We're going to be using Accela for 20 years. So you can set that here. So this would be where you could come and set your blockout calendar. And I want to note there is currently a bug, and Andrew, I'm sorry if this has been fixed and I missed it, that for scripting, so if you were trying to look up scheduling of inspections through scripting for the next day, it is not currently looking at this calendar unless it came out in the latest release pack. It is actually looking at the one in Classic. So if you do a lot of scripting of inspections, what you would need to do is go into Classic, and it's a bug, so which is why you have to do extra work here, sadly. But you have to come here and set an inspection blockout calendar as well. So this one doesn't have one, but you would need to add a calendar here if you do a lot of scripting or a lot of inspection scheduling through scripting. And a use case for that would be, you know, in a code enforcement world, if you fail an inspection today and it gets rescheduled for 30 days out, and then that 30 days happens to be New Year's, if you don't have one set here, it's going to pick New Year's Day. But it's a known issue. There's some stuff on community. If you search for scripting and inspection calendar, you'll see that out there.
Okay, another quick question that we can easily address is there's been some questions around how to block out a specific user's calendar. So for example, an inspector is going to take the day or week off for vacation time. And in the calendar setup portlet, there's actually a user calendar that user can go and leverage. Calendar by type, I believe, Joshua. And then user. This calendar is an administration calendar for the users to go in and define their work days. So if you do have a case where inspectors are taking vacations or additional time off, they can use this view here to come in and block out the times that they're going to be gone from their calendar, and the system will accommodate that block out within the scheduling request. Okay, let's see, what else do we have here? There's a question as to what release these items have been available since, and the initial version was 7.3, and there were several enhancements to this logic made in the 8.x code line, but this functionality has been pretty consistent since the 8.x code line. What else do we have here? So there is a question about days prior versus calendar days and business days. And this came specifically from Sheila Jones, and I'd like to take this one offline with you, Sheila. The answer is absolutely yes, we can control that. It's just a matter of how you configure the settings that Joshua has shown here to block out that Saturday and Sunday and only allow for inspections to be requested on the next inspection day of Monday. So that's just a matter of controlling these settings to create those blockouts. And the main thing that you would need is on your main calendar, you would need to define Saturday and Sunday as blockout windows. And Joshua's going to show that real quick.
Let me go. Sorry. So there's two ways. You know, you could do it when you're setting up your calendar itself by doing repeat every. So this will make it so that you can only schedule on those days between those times. Or the other way is you could do the reverse, and in the blockout calendar, sorry, I keep clicking on the wrong one. I could, you know, block out repeat every Saturday and Sunday, and block out every Saturday and Sunday. Or if it's just like the first of the month, because you guys are doing something, you can do the first of the month as well. If you wanted to block out the first Monday of every month because you know all your inspectors are in a meeting with their supervisor during a certain time. So that's how you would do that.
Okay, another really good question that I think a lot of people have is how are travel times considered into this, and should they be built into the inspection units? And the answer is yes. The inspection units should do their best to accommodate for the travel times between inspections for the inspector. So if your average inspection unit is 30 minutes, I would make your units 45 to allow for those travel times, and that way your inspector isn't overloaded with the number of inspections that are put on their calendar for the day. There is a question about routing here, and I want to address that. It says, are the ACA inspections going to dictate the routing of the inspections? And they are not. ACA is simply a request or schedule tool, and then the order of the inspection processing is still left up to the inspection or back office staff that sets the schedule for the inspector. They can reorder them in any way. If you're using some of the routing capabilities within the system, you can still leverage the Citizen Access scheduled inspections within those routes, and you'll be able to control those routes from the end user perspective. There's another question here about multiple modules. And that can be accommodated. It's just the accommodation for a multiple module implementation just needs to be very thorough in its setup of the various calendars. You're probably going to have multiple calendars at least one per module, if not more granular than that, to allow for the different inspection types to be processed the way your agency would like to process them. We can do that. There's also a question about super agency in here, and right now super agency, their super agency is not part of this logic at this point in time. When the inspection is scheduled, it's scheduled against the individual or single agency. So once a user creates a record in the super agency module, that record lives in a single agency, and then all inspection scheduling logic is based off of that specific agency's logic to respond to that question. Okay, we're running down to the bottom of questions. If there's any others, please get them into the list. One just came in. Code enforcement setup is exactly similar to this. It would depend on your variations in business process, but yes, setting up inspection management for code enforcement is the same as setting up inspection management for buildings. What else? The version we're using currently for this demonstration is 19.1.4, our latest release. That's a question. Yes, inspection districts can be set up to allow GIS to be the district value. We actually support two types of districts in the system. We support a district value that is tied to a parcel or an address in the system, or you can set up a GIS layer within your GIS service that represents your inspection district boundaries, and we can call out to that GIS layer when we schedule the inspection to get the proper district information and use that district in the logic of scheduling that inspection. We have agencies that use both models. The GIS layer model allows you to change your districts a little bit easier than if you store the districts against the address or parcel in our system, but both models do function within the product. Joshua, did you have any other points to make today?
There's one question about our jurisdictions are broken into 6 inspection districts. How do you configure an inspection to have 3 districts for building discipline and different districts for the code enforcement?
Yep.
So basically what you'd have to do is you'd have to set up, of course this happens now. Hold on. I'm having computer issues, I apologize. I won't show it, but basically what you would need to do is have districts for the code enforcement and districts for the building department separate, and then attach those, either in the GIS or on the parcel or the address, and then that will allow you to kind of handle both of those. And if people do double duty, you just need to make sure that they're assigned both of those districts.
Yep. There's also another question. Can you set an inspection series for a specific permit? And the way I'm reading into this question is they would like to set essentially an order for those inspections to be performed on that permit. And while that doesn't leverage our calendar functionality, we have a different set of functionality around inspections called milestones. And those milestones can control forcing your customer users through a specific order of inspections on various permit types. So it's not part of this particular webinar, but that's something that can be accomplished using the milestone functionality of the system. Travel times. The reference documentation that contains this, Joshua, would you go back? We'll be providing that as a slide in the webinar content that we provide. So this PowerPoint will be sent out as some format, probably a PDF, once the webinar is complete. And all of the links here are where you are going to find all of the documentation around everything that Joshua showed today on the call. running down on questions here. There is no difference between Classic and V360. Well, I shouldn't say that. The Accela Classic, first of all, the user interface is not supported anymore, so anybody using that as a user interface should definitely think about using V360 or the new UI as soon as possible. And calendars did not exist in the Classic interface. They were only supported within the V360 user interface. So if you're still leveraging Classic, you cannot take advantage of this capabilities. Okay. I think that's the bulk of the questions that we have for today. I think we'll wrap it up here and give everyone back 10 minutes of the day. I want to thank everyone for attending, and I look forward to our future webinars. The next one's scheduled for early December, and we're going to be highlighting the new form design.
Yep. Thanks, everyone.